everybody, welcome to the video. It's Thursday, April 29th, and we're breaking down both slates that we have over on DraftKings today. One of those split slate days, so it makes things a little bit more confusing, but all I did was kind of just mix and match these guys all in the same video here, but you guys can see in the matchup info column when these guys start. So if they're on the early slate, they're going to start before 7 p.m., and then if they start from 7 p.m. on, they're on the late main slate tonight, so I think you guys should be able to figure that out, because I don't make two separate videos, because it's a little bit harder, I think, for everybody. But if you find this video helpful in any way possible, please leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out, and I really do appreciate it. If you want to follow me over on social media, the handle is in the bottom right corner of your screen. And if you want help with the channel over on Patreon, link is down below for that, for the projections, optimizer, ownership projections, rankings, cheat sheets, data sheets, Discord community, all that fun stuff. You can join a community of several hundred members. And wait until the first of the month to do that, though, because it's like the end of the month, so I don't want you guys to get the double charge. I think that's it for the shameless plug, so without further ado, let's dive into today's video. And as per usual, we will start with the pitchers, and I forgot to mention how these slates are looking like today. So there's going to be an early slate today, which includes 4 games. I believe that starts around 1 p.m. Eastern, maybe like 1:05. I think that starts with the Yankees and Orioles game. And then in the late main slate, it says there's 5 games, but I'm pretty sure it's just 4 now, because it says on DraftKings the Detroit and Chicago game, the doubleheader, is not going to be included, and points won't be scored for those players, so we have to take that out of the slate. So I'm pretty sure that leaves 4 games. So we have 2 4-game slates today, and the late slate starts at around 7:20 p.m. Eastern, I believe. So just to kind of mention that really quick, but we'll start up top. We have 2 aces on both slates today. So in the early slate, the ace is Aaron Nola. On the late slate, it's going to be Trevor Bauer. We'll start with Trevor Bauer here in the late slate, going up against the Milwaukee Brewers, who are a nice strikeout. That's a nice strikeout matchup here for Trevor Bauer. They're a team that will strike out quite a bit, especially versus righties dating back to last season. And once you take Christian Yelich out of the lineup for the Brewers, it's just a pretty bad lineup overall. Like, a lot of these guys just strike out a lot, don't make a ton of contact. Some of these guys do have some pop, but it comes with a lot of strikeout upside as well. And only a 3.2 implied team total here for the Milwaukee Brewers. Pretty heavy favorite here for Trevor Bauer, and an 8.5 K prop over in Vegas. It's a hitter-friendly park in Milwaukee. I wish he was pitching at home, but don't really have any real concerns there. He should be just fine. Dating back to last season, 105 inning sample size, throwing about 104 pitches per game, 1.97 ERA, 3.12 xFIP, 2.76 SIERA, 36.5% K rate. Doesn't really give much power whatsoever, and just has some pretty overall elite numbers. Only 26% hard contact rate given up. Now, if we look at the Brewers splits versus righties this season, they're striking out at a 27.2% clip, 79 WRC plus, and only a 148 ISO. So I definitely like Trevor Bauer today. If you are playing the late slate tonight, it's going to be pretty hard to get past him, because looking at the other pitching options on the slate, it is really, really bad. And you know it's really bad when I have Martin Perez listed here. I know he's got a good matchup versus Texas, but you know it's a bad pitching slate, especially in the late one, when I have Martin Perez listed on this sheet. And I feel awful even having Perez here, but looking at the options, there's just really nowhere else to go for the most part. And then dropping down to Aaron Nola, $10,000. A little bit more affordable than Trevor Bauer, but he's on the early slate. But last time he faced St. Louis, which was 2 starts ago, kind of struggled in his last start versus the Rockies. He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't that great either. I liked him quite a bit because of the price point. Ended up not working out, but last time he faced the Cardinals, he had nearly 50 fantasy points in that game. Absolutely crushed them. Now, can we expect that again? Can we expect that again? No. I mean, that's just kind of unrealistic, but it's still a decent spot here versus St. Louis. Yes, they got a couple good bats in their lineup, like Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, Tommy Edmonds, not bad, Paul DeYoung, Yadier Molina, but it's still a lineup where I'm not like super scared of, and I usually give the advantage to elite pitching over a halfway decent lineup, and I'm not really too concerned here. Vegas isn't either. Only a 3.34 implied team total against Nola. He's a slight favorite, 7.5 K prop over in Vegas, and dating back to last season, kind of a similar sample size compared to Trevor Bauer, where he's close to 105 innings pitched. About 95 pitches per game, 3.15 ERA, 2.96 xFIP, 3.25 SIERA. Strikeout rate above 30%, doesn't really give up much power, not a lot of hard contact, so I don't hate Aaron Nola here. And looking at the matchup specifically as a righty versus the Cardinals, 26% carry, which I know shows up red here, but compared to these other teams, it looks the worst out of all the other 4 teams that we have listed here, but still a 26% K rate versus righties is definitely a plus matchup here for Aaron Nola. They're not walking a ton, not a ton of power, and some overall kind of weak numbers. So Aaron Nola, I mean, even though it's $10,000 after a not so great start, doesn't feel great. It's just the way the pitching is on these slates today, he does grade out pretty well compared to the rest of the field. And then Jordan Montgomery, $8,800. He looks like a good SP2 option on that early slate to even pair with Aaron Nola. I know you're kind of spending up a bit for pitching, but once again, we have some cheap Yankees bats that we can just plug in our lineup. Odor, Urshela, Gleyber Torres. These guys aren't overly expensive, and they're the best stack, I would say, on both slates today. So if you just plug those guys in, you can still get pieces of good offenses, and you can split it for pitching today as well. And I'd have to imagine Jordan Montgomery's going to pick up a win today as long as he can go at least 5 innings, which I feel like he can. And the last time he played Baltimore this season, I think it was his first start of the year. He scored nearly 30 fantasy points, and it's a pretty good matchup as a lefty here versus the Baltimore Orioles. Looking at their splits this season versus left-handed pitching, again, we have smaller sample sizes to work with, but they have a 27.1% K rate, 5% walk rate, only a 148 ISO, on-base percentage below 300, 0.6 WOBA, and a 100 WRC+. I know it's a hitter-friendly park in Camden Yards, which can always give you a little bit of trouble. Maybe guys like Trey Mancini might be able to do some damage against him, but only a 4 implied team total here. Pretty heavy favorite. 5.5 K prop over in Vegas, and has 25% K rate since last season and low walk rate of 5%. Does give me some positive vibes in this matchup here. So I am liking Jordan Montgomery. Plus, I think there's a lot of win equity here, and that 4-point bonus could go a long way on that pitching slate. Now, Martin Perez, $5,700. I apologize in advance when this blows up in your face, but looking at the other pitching on that slate, it's just awful. I mean, there's a couple of spend-up options you could use, but even then, I don't feel that great about Kyle Gibson at nearly $8,000 doesn't feel that good versus Boston. Just the other pitchers, it's awful. So I'm feeling like maybe just punting with Perez to spend up for other bats might be the way to go. I'm hoping something just makes me want to change my mind later on. But man, Martin Perez is looking like the viable option, but it's bad. I mean, it's bad. Like his past few starts, I don't think he's even gotten past like 8 fantasy points. So there's very, very low expectations here. I just like the matchup as a lefty versus Texas. It's not that great of a lineup, but 4.12 implied team total against him, which I guess isn't terrible for a guy that's $5,700. He's a slight favorite, 4K prop over in Vegas, and if he can somehow make it 5+ innings and just the Red Sox have the lead and he keeps the lead, we'll take that 4-point bonus. Because I can't imagine he's going to rack up strikeouts here. He's probably going to get like 3 to 5, maybe 3 to 6. I mean, it's a good strikeout matchup here versus Texas. So if he can get us the win, he only gives up a couple runs, goes like 5 or 6 innings, gets a handful of strikeouts. We will take that all day at $5,700. But again, very, very low expectations here. And if you can find somebody else you like, I would recommend it. If I was just doing purely the late slate, I'd probably have more pitchers listed here, but I kind of wanted to pick 2 from each slate. But dating back to last season for Perez, about an 80-inning sample size. He's going about 84 pitches per game, 4.7 ERA, 5.27 xFIP, 5.34 SIERA. Never good when your xFIP and SIERA are worse than your ERA, especially when it's close to 5. Only 17% K rate, double-digit walk rate, 6.9 Ks per 9. Yeah, bad numbers here, so don't get too excited about Martin Perez. It's purely just a price play and a halfway decent matchup play as well, because the Texas Rangers kind of suck versus lefties. 24% K rate, which is lower than what their K rate is versus righties, but we can deal with that. 6% walk rate, 121 ISO, 286 on base percentage, 280 WOBA, which I gotta change that so the 0 shows up because that's kind of bothering me. But a 280 WOBA there and 83 WRC+. So it's purely a matchup and price play, but to be honest, guys, I'd say it's very risky. It's just the way the pitching is in the late slate, it's pretty darn bad, so you might just have to go that way. Then moving on to the batters, we'll start with catcher, move around the diamond, and hit the outfield as well. We'll start up top. Gary Sanchez here, $4,900. He's gotten the past 2 days off, and Kyle Higashioka, where his first game, he was excellent. I think he had close to 20 fantasy points, went deep. Yesterday, pretty much got a goose egg, if I remember correctly, and I'd imagine Gary Sanchez is going to get the start today. So if you have the money for him, great. It's just I'm not sure if I want to pay nearly $5,000 for a catcher, especially one that strikes out quite a bit, hits for a low batting average, and overall only has a 127 team ISO, or not team ISO, 127 individual ISO so far this year. I mean, I like the matchup versus Jorge Lopez. The Yankees are definitely the best stack on the slate, and while they have struggled this season, the past 2 games, you've definitely wanted to stack them. I mean, they've been some of the best stacks on the slate so far. 5.43 implied team total. It's a good hitter's park in Camden Yards. They get a nice upgrade here. So, and you get the guaranteed ninth inning at bats as well. It's just if I'm going to spend up for Montgomery and Aaron Nola on the slate, you don't have to do that. But if, let's just say theoretically I do, I want to play guys like Judge if he's in the lineup, Stanton. I would much rather allocate my funds to those guys rather than a Gary Sanchez here. So, again, if you have the money for him, you're going cheaper at pitcher and you want to spend up for Gary Sanchez today, I have no issues with that, but definitely not my favorite spend up on the Yankees today. Up and down to a late slate option, we have Travis d'Arnaud at $4,600. Looking like the Braves are going to be one of the better stacks on the late slate, and that's one of the ways that if you use Martin Perez, you can afford some of these expensive options. But Travis d'Arnaud here, he's just an overall good hitting catcher for the most part. I know this season he's batting below 200 with a 127 ISO, which is right on par with Gary Sanchez for the most part. But we know in past seasons, Travis d'Arnaud is typically a pretty good hitting catcher for the most part. Hits in a prime spot in the order, and this is a good Braves lineup. Guys like Marcell Ozuna, Ronald Acuna, Travis d'Arnaud, Ozzy Albies, and even some of the secondary options in the bottom half of that lineup are pretty good as well. And Alzolay here, not really a pitcher I'm going to get too concerned about here. His numbers aren't overly impressive, and the Braves do have a team total above 5 today, so I can definitely get behind the Braves today. Martin Maldonado, $2,500. If you just want cheap exposure to a good offense, Maldonado is a good way to do that. Plus, you get the righty on lefty matchup here versus Kikuchi, who had a really good start to the season, his first start or two. And then the past few starts, it's been a bit of a struggle for Kikuchi. I mean, I still think he's an okay pitcher, but we can certainly pick on him a little bit with some of these righties in the lineup. And they do have a team total close to 5 here, and the bullpen for the Mariners isn't exactly the greatest thing in the world. So if they can get the Kikuchi early, I think that'd be a plus for them. But he's only $2,500, so he's certainly a good option at cheap for a catcher on the early slate. Then dropping down to first base, we have Freddie Freeman, $5,300. It's a nice lefty on righty matchup here versus Alzolay, and I do like the Brave stack like I already mentioned. And Freddie Freeman's numbers this season, I mean, the batting average is a little bit low. He's getting a bit unlucky. I'd assume it's going to rise up to around the 300 mark at some point in the season, probably sometime soon. But a 389 WOBA, 282 ISO, 145 WRC plus with a 529 slugging. Struck out yesterday versus Anthony Rizzo, which was a little disappointing to see. It was a funny moment if you guys were watching that, but I still like Freddie Freeman here quite a bit, especially if you are stacking up the Braves. He just is pretty expensive. And if you do stack the Braves, I mean, you have to break the bank for these guys. Like Acuna's around 6,000, Ozuna's expensive, Albies is expensive, d'Arnaud's expensive, so is Freddie Freeman. So it's tough to stack these guys. You might have to just pick a couple that you like, but they are all pretty good options today. Yuli Gurriel, $4,700, gets a nice righty on lefty matchup here versus Kikuchi, and he's been playing very good baseball so far this season. Similar plate appearance sample size to Freddie Freeman. He's got a 356 batting average, 444 WOBA, 218 ISO, and a 200 WRC plus so far. And the Astros have been playing well recently, so I can play some Yuli Gurriel today. I'd have no issue with that. Doesn't feel great paying nearly $5,000 for him, but if you look at his numbers this season, I think it's totally justified. And then Pavin Smith here at $3,900, leading off for the Arizona Diamondbacks in a lefty on righty matchup versus Antonio Senzatella. I do like the Diamondbacks quite a bit on the late slate. They look like one of the better teams to stack. They're got a team total close to 5 here. And Antonio Senzatella, while we're not in Coors Field, I still suck the Diamondbacks quite a bit. If they're in Coors, I mean, I love the Diamondbacks today, but still Antonio Senzatella is not that great of a pitcher. He's a low strikeout guy. I believe he's at a 13% K rate since last season. Also doesn't walk a lot of guys, so he pitches to contact. Typically gets a lot of ground balls, which kind of sucks stacking against him because I hate ground ball pitchers, but we can definitely use some lefties against him. You can use some righties as well, but I do like the Diamondbacks here. Senzatella's just not that great of a pitcher, isn't having the greatest season so far, and Pavin Smith, while his numbers aren't overly impressive, he's below $4,000. He's batting nearly 260, 314 WOBA, ISO close to 200 with a 97 WRC plus. Those are passable numbers for his price range. Then dropping down to second base, we have DJ LeMahieu, also eligible at first base, $5,500. See, I'd rather spend up for a guy like Judge or Stanton, to be honest, in the Yankees lineup today. But if you want to go up to DJ LeMahieu, like I said, you could also play him at first base. But I would rather play Rugenador, to be honest, because look, we're not going to be able to spend up for all the Yankees you want because Judge is expensive. If he's in the lineup, Stan's expensive. You have DJ LeMahieu, super expensive, Gary Sanchez. But the cheap options are the ones that are going to be super popular. So Rugenador, Giovanni Urshela, he went deep last night. Gleyber Torres, he's only $4,200. Those are the guys that are going to carry a ton of ownership. I'd also imagine Stan's probably right behind them because he's more affordable than DJ LeMahieu and Judge, and he's got plenty of power. He's also been hitting the ball well recently the past couple of days. So LeMahieu is a fine tournament option for me. I don't think I'd get there in cash games, but I think we all know who DJ is by this point. He's a guy that hits for a high average, doesn't really strike out too much, has some decent pop in his bat as well. Leading off for the best stack on the entire slate, or both slates today if you just combine the two. And then Ozzy Albies, $4,900, betting cleanup here for the Braves. Like I mentioned earlier, I like all the Braves. He's fine versus lefties or righties. Kind of prefer him versus lefties, but I can't complain too much here. So if you are stacking the Braves, I think he's a fine option. Then Rugenador, $3,800, got the day off yesterday. I believe that was yesterday. But last time he was in the lineup versus a righty, he did bat cleanup, and if that's going to happen again today, it's going to be super hard to pass him up at $3,800. And typically when you think of Ador, you think of a guy with decent power but strikes out a ton. But so far this season, he's only got a 15% K rate and an ISO close to 200. Now, those K rate numbers are going to rise, but Jorge Lopez is a guy where you can target lefties against him, you can target righties. I prefer the lefties, and Odor, he's a lefty here. He's at a fair price point, potentially batting cleanup for the best team on the slate. You can sign me up for some Rugenador today. even if he's batting like 7th, 8th, or 9th, I would still play Odor today. If he's batting 4th, it's just a super good spot. You can't pass him up in cash games. Then dropping on third base, Alex Bregman, $5,300. Righty on lefty matchup here versus Kikuchi. And I think if you guys watch my videos for so far the entire season, anytime Bregman's facing a lefty, I will have him on the sheet pretty much because he crushes left-handed pitching. Low K rate versus them, high power, high batting average, just overall really good numbers. So Alex Bregman, like him in Astros stacks. Eduardo Escobar here, $4,400, lefty on righty matchup here versus Sensatella. I do prefer lefties versus him. And I think the D-backs are just a solid stack today. I mean, I don't overly love stacking the Diamondbacks, but Sensatella is a pitcher that we can certainly pick on a bit. And he's got some good power so far this season. He has 7 dongers, 290 ISO with a 522 slugging, 119 WRC plus. The batting average is pretty low, but I'll take the power upside at $4,400. Also eligible at second base as well. Then dropping down to Giovanni Urshela, only $3,600. I don't see how you don't play him in cash games today, guys. He was cheap yesterday, ended up having a homer, I want to say around 21, 24 fantasy points, and he's just hitting in the middle of the order for the best stack on the entire slate for a great offense, and there's going to be plenty of RBI opportunities for Gio Urshela today. $3,600 just seems way too cheap, in my opinion, and that's why guys like Odor, Urshela, and Gleyber Torres are going to be super popular today, especially on that early slate because it's only 4 games. So I just don't see how you don't go that route today. I like him in tournaments and cash games, and so far this season he's batting close to 280 with a 203 ISO and a 125 WRC plus. So the numbers check out as well. And then going down to shortstop, his teammate Gleyber Torres, I think one spot further back, $4,200. I would just play him today, guys. Jorge Lopez is not a great pitcher. They have the highest team total in the slate. While I know Torres hasn't exactly been the greatest thing in the world this season, he's only got a .047 ISO with a 233 average. He did fine yesterday, had a double, had a couple hits. I think he had an RBI as well, had a couple runs. Yeah, Gleyber Torres, $4,200. Sign me up for all the Yankees I can get today, especially these cheaper ones. Then Dansby Swanson, $3,600. Fair price point for a stack that I like. I think he's a very similar play to Torres. They're both cheap, parts of their own stacks, where the other guys are super expensive. They're hitting in the same spot in the order, plenty of RBI opportunities, haven't exactly been hitting the greatest this season. They're literally the same play to me, they're just on different slates. Then Nick Ahmed, $2,900 if you just want a cheap part of the Arizona stack that I like quite a bit today. It's only a 56 plate appearance sample size this season, which is less than half of what Torres and Swanson have, but he's only batting 167 with a 187 WOBA, 0.56 ISO, and a 15 WRC plus. But again, I like all the D-backs today, and Sensatella is not that great of a pitcher. Then Aaron Judge on close stand. If Judge is back in the lineup, you can obviously play him. He's got some of the most power in the entire league. He's batting 263 this season with a 35 WOBA, a 237 ISO, and a 155 WRC plus with a 500 slugging. So definitely like Aaron Judge if he is back. Had the day off yesterday, but John close stand. If I had to pick between the two, I will pick with Stanton, especially in cash games because of the price point. But $5,200 for Stanton. He's been playing well recently, and he's only batting 229 this season. He still has a 241 ISO with a 112 WRC plus and a 470 slugging. So I can definitely get behind some Stanton. He's had back-to-back pretty good days. David Peralta, $5,000. His price got way up there. I remember he was in the 3K range. Doesn't feel like too long ago, maybe a couple weeks ago. But lefty ready matchup here versus Sensatella. Preferred lefties versus Sens here. And looking at his splits this season, he's batting 267 with a 344 WOBA, 209 ISO, 477 slugging, 333 on base percentage. Okay numbers for Peralta. Wish he was a lot cheaper, but if you are stacking the D-backs, kind of hard to leave Peralta out of your lineups. And then some cheaper outfielders here. Not a lot to like in the cheap range on both slates today in the outfield. I'm sure something will pop up later in the day, but Kyle Tucker, lefty on lefty matchup, so I don't love that, but assuming they can get Kikuchi out of the game relatively early and he doesn't go like 7, 8, 9 innings, he'll see a righty at some point, and at that point, you're going to probably wish you had some Kyle Tucker in your lineup because he's batting cleanup potentially, and $3,600 is not a bad price point for a decent stack today I like. So getting a prime guy in the order with a so be able to get a guy like Kyle Tucker if he's batting cleanup or a decent spot in the order at only $3,600 at what should be lower ownership because it's a lefty on lefty matchup. Don't hate the idea at all, especially in tournaments. I think you could go there in cash games as well, but not saying it's something necessarily I would do because people are probably going to play Yankees in the outfield today. Then Charlie Blackmon, $3,500. This has to be the cheapest I've seen Charlie Blackmon in a long time. I forget exactly what his price point was yesterday because I had zero interest in him because I liked Alex Wood quite a bit, but $3,500, that is just crazy. I mean, I remember the days when Charlie Blackmon was almost $6,000. I mean, I realize it's a park downgrade going from Colorado to Arizona, but even then, it is a really cheap Charlie Blackmon. I know he's been terrible this year, only a 176 batting average at the 118 ISO and a 59 WRC plus, but at some point that's going to turn around, and he's now hitting 5th. It's just it's been bad for Charlie Blackmon so far, but Luke Weaver's not the greatest pitcher out there. He's not terrible either, but he can give up some hard contact. And if we're looking at his splits since last season, he is allowing a 46% fly ball rate with a 43% hard contact rate. So maybe there's a little bit of upside here for Charlie Blackmon at that cheap price point. And Aaron Hicks, $3,200. If you just want exposure to the Yankees and you want to use a cheap outfielder here outside of Stanton and Aaron Judge, Aaron Hicks, while he's not the best hitter out there, it's just cheap Yankees exposure for the most part, and hopefully he can get on base a couple times and get a run because he hasn't had the greatest bat this year. He's batting 147 with a 133 ISO and a 50 WRC plus, but I like all the Yankees here versus Jorge Lopez. And I don't think we've mentioned Jorge Lopez's numbers specifically yet, but dating back to last season, he's got a 7.15 ERA with a 4.6 xFIP, 4.6 SIERA, strikeout rate below 20%. He's allowing a 279 batting average, 354 WOBA, and a 200 ISO. I think it's obvious at this point, but I do like the Yankees quite a bit today on that early slate. But with that being said, guys, I think that's going to be it for the video. So I hope it was helpful, and if it was, make sure to leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. Really do appreciate it. If you don't follow me over on social media, you can do that by following the handles in the bottom corner of your screen. And if you want to help with the channel over on Patreon, wait till the first of the month, but you can join the community of several hundred members. Get projections, optimizer, ownership projections, rankings, cheat sheet, data sheets, Discord community, all that fun stuff. Link is down below. But I will stop rambling. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. I hope the weather is wonderful wherever you are. It's raining here, so it looks like it's going to be a bit of a sucky day. But hopefully it's sunny where you are. And I'll see you guys in the next video.